through multiple iterations. We finally decided on separate Comet GP21s, one for the RP1D, one for the RP1V. And on mobile, we tried all sorts of variations. We finally settled on the Procom antennas, which are made in Europe. We don't have a distributor in the United States, so we actually had to have a friend in Finland buy antennas for us and ship them to us. But we achieved very good performance with that configuration. With those improved results, we got good data throughput. Depending on the terrain, about 25 miles worth of data coverage. We get much better performance out of the voice repeaters because it's much narrower bandwidth and runs the same power. And from the building top and flat terrain, as Fred mentioned, we can get out to 80 miles. So we get much better performance there now. In February of 2005, we installed the second generation RP2 radios. We installed and configured a gateway. That was the first gateway outside of ICOM. It was installed in Dallas. And we knew very little about it at that point. During that one weekend, we talked via the internet with both ICOM America headquarters in Washington, and there was some testing done with ICOM Japan. We then took a tour of our area demonstrating the coverage. We've had a lot of fun interacting with the engineers. We have learned a lot from them. And then when the timing was right for the time difference, as we were taking them back to the airport, they were able to actually talk back to Japan at that point. This is what the rack looked like then. The top radios are, of course, part of our commercial repeater system on analog. Then the RP2D, the RP2V, and the RP2C with the router below it. This diagram I'm sure you've all seen now. It's very common. It's actually in most of the documentation online. This is the configuration we came up with. Now, please remember, when we first made this presentation was at Dayton in 2005. So nobody had seen any of this yet as we were going through it. This part of the presentation we actually made, we created this presentation during the trip to Dayton. We had a caravan of vehicles driving down the highway, and I was driving the lead vehicle, and I dictated the generic outline of this presentation to my wife, Lisa. Lisa cannot use a computer in a vehicle. She gets motion sickness. So she transcribed my outline, handed it to Megan, my daughter, who worked on the computer and built the overall presentation. Megan at that point was not very good at PowerPoint. She could build the basic stuff but had no idea how to do any of the graphics. So we had another vehicle behind us who had some guys who were very good at graphics. So we got on the radio, and using the ID1s between the two vehicles, we transferred the file to them and started describing what I wanted for the graphics to look like.
At 80 miles an hour.
Driving down the freeway. A few iterations back and forth, and we came up with this. And then I'm sure many of you have now seen our K5 TIT logo. That presentation was created by all of us. Give the next one, Megan. This logo was created during that trip. I said, take the Texas flag, replace the star with the D-star. And our basic logo, which we still use today, was created driving down the freeway using D-star. Since that time, a lot has changed. Like we said earlier, the first system was deployed in the United States in December of 2003. The first gateway in February of 2005. VHF and UHF repeaters were announced in May of 2006. Last fall, with some help, a lot of help from Evo and crew, we were able to integrate the European network into ours. And then this year, we began the conversion to the G2 gateway. Now, there is a disclaimer here. I am not an ICOM employee. I have no idea what the D-Star sales figures are anywhere. But as part of the trust server administration team, I can see all of the user registrations, all of the gateway registrations as we go through the entire thing. So the numbers I'm going to show you are only gateway numbers, okay? This is through September of 2006. You'll notice the number of users over on the left side. For those of you who cannot see, when we got to May of 2006, we just have just over 40 registered users on the gateways. That was a gateway in New York City, a gateway in Bellevue, Washington, ICOM America headquarters, and a gateway in Dallas, Texas. I believe at that point we had the first one in Canada with Eric and crew. But we had only 40 users registered across the network. At Dayton of that year, we announced the VHF and UHF repeater availability. And we really expected to see an immediate dramatic increase in users. We did not see that dramatic increase right then. We did not see that dramatic increase. If you look all the way out till September, you'll see that we were only about 108 users across the network. Now, there's a story there. In conversations with ICOM America management, they were trying to figure out what their sales projections should be through the end of the year. And given the price of the repeater systems, they were expecting to sell somewhere between 10 and 12 repeater systems in 2006. They ran a promotion to try to encourage people to buy repeaters at Dayton. At the end of that promotion, and it was only good for a few weeks there were not 10 or 12 repeaters committed. There were 29 systems purchased. The demand for the product so far outstripped the supply that it took until September to catch up. So at September of 2006, we had 108 users, 108. Go to the next slide, Megan. Now, if you look through August 2007, you see basically the same shaped graph. But if you look back along the bottom to September of 2006 and look at where that 108 is, you see a sharp increase going up from there.
One thing that happened at Dayton that was very interesting is that there were Jim, myself, Bill Moore, Lisa, and Megan working at Dayton.
A dedicated D-Star booth.
Dedicated D-Star booth. We thought we would be able to work 2 hours, take a break, work 2 hours, take a break. We worked 14 hours, then took a break. We literally had people standing from where I am to the wall waiting to talk to us. We blocked in a major aisle at Dayton. We did not expect to have that many people that interested to find out about D-Star. It totally floored us. One of the things that happened to Jim and I is we had a group of 7 people come up and talk to us Friday at Dayton. Friday night there was an event very similar to this that was hosted at a hotel. This same group and 100 others came who we weren't expecting.
We were expecting 25.